You are now live. Hello? We're live. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Hi everybody. It is Thursday, June the 3rd, in the year of our Lord 2021. Which Lord that is, I don't know. That's not anti-Christian or anything, that's just anyway. Before I dig a deeper hole, great, I'm going to pull Johnny in because without further ado, you don't want to hear me waffling on, so I'm going to pull Johnny in right now. Okay, see all. Where is it? I'm going to, hang on a sec. I'm going to, hang on a sec. Here we go. Low. Okay, where's... Well, hang on a sec. As you can tell, I'm not very up on this. I'm going to... There we go. Here we go. Me. Let's get the man on. Johnny!
Hi, Red.
How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, good. All right. I'm enjoying this weather.
Yeah, it's all right in Manchester. It's been tropical for a few days, so everyone's losing their minds. Obviously, can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you great. I can hear you great. How you do? I mean, have you finished the record?
Yeah. I finished it about a week ago.
Because when we last spoke, you said you had like one lyric or one riff or something, right?
Yeah, it was driving me crazy. Yeah, it was a line. Yeah, that you know how it is. You know,
Yeah. When did it come to you? Was it like when you weren't thinking about it, or did it just drop?
Of course, it came to me at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course, while I was supposed to be asleep. Honestly, seriously, why does that happen? But most of it's been that way, to be honest with you. It's been back to being kind of my nocturnal ways. Almost on the last sort of couple of albums, I've been living pretty nocturnally, and I said, "Hey, listen, this is no life for an adult, you know." And this is, living like I did when I was going to say a student, but anyway, you know what I mean.
I do.
But it just seems to go that way really for me. Like, I don't know. I don't try. I just kind of. I think it's better when there's no static around, and it's not just a matter of like your brain waves slowing down. It's just there's too much static in the air these days, so it kind of comes to me. A lot of good ideas come to me in the night, I think.
I totally agree with you. There's so much noise in the daytime, literally. And you think of that, all the frequencies going off. There's a stillness to the night that that's when the stuff happens, right?
Yeah, it's been that way for me on the last few albums. So I've got you think you're asleep and you're not really, and then you just wake up and go, pow!
You got it.
Honestly, I had this thing on the last album, the track, The Tracers, and it was called Tracers for a long time, like months, because I had that title and the concept and all of that quite a while before I started doing that record. And honestly, man, it was like 5:30 in the morning. I just woke up thinking, I had this major revelation. It should be The Tracers. and I sent a text to myself, and went, sort of eventually got back to sleep. And often when we're doing a festival or whatever, and I look at it on the set list, I go, that was a good move. The Tracers is a big difference.
But it's funny because that's one of the things, you'll know this because you've written a lot more lyrics than I have, but that's one of the things, getting to grips with trying to write lyrics, that you really notice that one word can completely shift your feeling about something, can't it? I mean, that for me is like, that was the big revelation about trying to write a lyric, was like, you look at something, you go, I like the feeling of this, but this feels really, really dodgy. And then you just change one word, or you change it, or you take a U out, or you take an I out or something, and suddenly it's like, oh, that's better. Do you know what I mean?
The lyric that was driving me mad,
yeah,
I changed and for cause. Apostrophe COS. And for a few days when I talked to you, it was the most important word in the English language.
Wow.
And the and. So I mean, seriously, that happened. That was the last thing I changed.
Wow.
And then on another one of the choruses, I think it said then or something. And both times I was so happy because better's going to come was a lyric. It was and better's going to come.
Yeah.
In the context, exactly as you're talking about, because better's going to come, explained the whole sentiment of the previous three lines that make the chorus. And it made it less try, and it made it more sincere and all of that. And but this is why, you know, songwriting, particularly with words, you know, it isn't poetry. There's a lot of misunderstandings that people who don't write songs have about songwriting, I think, which is, you know, that there's this mistaken idea that the more profound and the more authentic, the better it is, just by virtue of the fact that it's authentic and profound. But Spellbound by Susie and the Banshees, or, you know, Boys Don't Cry by The Cure, or Fascination Street, I wouldn't want it to be called anything else.
No.
Yeah, I don't want some songs. I don't want the opening verse to be profound.
Yeah.
You know, Take Me Out, Franz Ferdinand. You don't want some the exposition about Alex's inner world. You want it to do the same with the music. I mean, you know that, and that's one of the great part of the Rubik cube that is the craft of songwriting. I think it's fantastic. Sometimes, you know, I've had songs which is the reverse of what I've just said, where I'd, particularly with, you know, my own stuff, where say a song like Hi Hello, which there was a sincerity in the music and an emotive quality in the music that had I written something about, you know, a building, or which I've done before, or society, or whatever, it would have been pretentious. I needed to honor the spirit of the music. So that's one bit of the Rubik's cube. But then, as I've said, another part of it is this thing where if something is very beautiful, it's, so say this song, I've said this before, but with the song that I've written called Armatopia, the fact that the lyrics are very serious, it's an eco song. I deliberately wrote to a kind of banging kind of party backing track, because to have written something that was, you know, that sounded like, you know, I've been out in a cabin for the last sort of year, and with my acoustic, something very earnest, it just would have been, it would have over-egged it. So all of these considerations are what keep you up at night. But when you crack it, it's fantastic. And then some other things, as you know, just pour out and they're just great, and you go, where the hell did that come from? But it's all of the above. It's never, a lot of people think, they have this idea that you come down, you descend down your staircase in your bathrobe, and you sit,
which you do piano, sometimes,
which, you know, I do, yeah. And you sit looking wistfully out onto your lawn at the piano or with your acoustic guitar, and you emote. I mean, if you want to make music that sounds like Gary Barlow, then be my guest, you know.
Gary Barlow lives in the next village next to my mum.
Well, ask him,
anyway.
Ask him where I can get a good dressing gown. I might make some more money.
You know what because I listened to you sent me the tracks, and I'm not going to mention any names because I know I'm not allowed to.
Well, but I know you like, well, I'm really glad that you like lightning people. That was really cool. This is an exclusive on your.
Do you know what? It's funny. Like, I listened to it when you sent it through a couple of days ago, and I listened to the 6 tracks, and I think I mentioned another one, and then today it was just like bang! It really came out. And you know what? It struck me. It struck me in the lyrics and what you're doing in the song. You're capturing a spirit. That's what I get. I get this. Like, what you're trying to do is like bottle light. I really feel like that. And it's like that spirit of, and I really, really relate to that, because, you know, there's some on my record which is very much that same spirit. It's that kind of, it's like a William Blake thing. It's like, it's a feeling, isn't it? And that's really hard to do. I found that quite hard to do. But man, you completely did it, and I I mean, it's so strong. It's so strong, which I want to get onto again because it baffles me how you can keep doing this. But you honestly, it's like, and it's so you as well. It's completely authentic. You
Thanks,
know,
Ed. That's very well. I think you're one of the 4 people who've heard it. So that means, obviously, that means a lot because you're in this not just because you like it and because you get it, but
yeah,
and it's positive. But you know what it's like, especially now in this situation we're in, where how are we going to get feedback? So
yeah,
you're in this weird kind of. I used to like for so many years. I used to love this place where you'd finish the record and it's not yet out and it's just for you and your mates. In the Smiths days, oh man, I don't know whether you had that experience, but it
yeah,
was like this great secret that
yeah.
you just couldn't wait to put out. But you had this little kind of period where it was just yours and you'd be playing it in your house, and that
Well, I
was
did
great.
that. Do you remember when I did that when we finished In Rainbows? We literally finished mixing and I drove straight up to Manchester to play it to you because I was like so proud of this record that we made and I wanted to play it to you. And
I
because
remember.
you lent us all those guitars as well. But I was
Yeah,
just like, it is a magic moment when you've got something that you think is people are going to really like as well. Or you hope they do, but you really love it and you want to share it. It's a magical moment, isn't it?
it is. Yeah, I think these maybe because I've been gigging so much, or because I don't know, I must have changed, or I don't know whether it what it is. Maybe it's because it's my own. I'm the front man now and all of that, but I kind of now I want it out.
Yeah.
You know, I just want it out now. You know, that's that obvious. That's real kind of your cliche thing of when you do. You know, a painter wants for it to be shown. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it's because I don't have like 15 people sitting around on the carpet smoking pot anymore.
Smoking dope.
I need to get them back. Hey, then I don't give a shit.
But that's also part of the thing, isn't it? It's different. The solo thing is different from being a band because the band, it is about a gang of sorts. It is about a kind of inner cabal, and then you have it to the out, and then you got, that's part of the, I think also probably because if you're in a band, it's gone through the filter of, the 4 or 5 of you plus the producer, engineer, and if you're all raving about it, then you know that it's got something. I think it's a lot harder. I've only done this once, obviously, but I think it's a lot harder when you're on your own because, it's a different dynamic.
That hadn't occurred to me. I think there's something in that. Yeah, that's right. I think I was talking. I did a podcast with someone today, and they were asking me about what things have changed, and I always had this one of my, this sort of consistent mantra, which was that I made in the Smiths days and with I guess with Modest Mouse as well, the Cribs. I felt like I first was making music for myself. As soon as I hit the track, and I had the track together, that and the idea, but then I was making it for the band, and then it was the fans. That was the main consideration, and then the media. They were definitely you knew they were going to be there, but they were at the bottom of the pile, but they were there.
Yeah.
And but now I find that I'm kind of, I think I've got a good idea with the last couple of albums. I'm not just saying it. I'm making it for the fans first.
Yeah.
The band can fuck off, but they'll like it.
They'll like it if I say so.
I love the band.
Yeah, I know.
But no, but I'm making it. The fans, are really because I really like my audience. That's the thing over the last. It sounds like a bit of a strange thing to say, perhaps, but it's been like 8 years of this building up this relationship, and I feel like, I feel kind of like I sort of got their vibe, and they kind of got mine, and we kind of. We sort of, we dress alike and we think alike and we read the same kind of things. And so anyway, they're on my mind more. The last couple of albums, they were always on my mind, but they're more to the front now, I think. So because of this situation and not being able to get out, we're gigging yet, I'm a little frustrated that I won't get out to play it. But hey, join the queue,
Yeah. Well, I can only vouch for that the gig at the Roundhouse in 2019 when Susan and I came along, and it was the best gig I went to that year. The vibe was, you know, you've got all the songs, but
yeah.
the vibe and stuff is amazing. So
No, it's been
good.
great. That was a great night. Polly
Proper.
came and
Yeah. And Matt Johnson.
Matt Johnson, yeah.
I was a little bit starstruck when I met Matt.
Yeah.
You're all right, but Matt Johnson.
Yeah.
It was funny. It was great. It was great meeting.
It was a good night, Ed.
It was a great night.
So what are you doing? Are you writing then?
Well, I told you last time I've been in a bit of a hole, but I have to say today, what I've been trying, I've been trying to find my way in, and I wanted to actually ask you about this because, for me, it's all about. So I've written some stuff, no lyrics, but I have an idea lyrically in my head where I want to go. But for me, it's always, well, for me, I say it's only been the last 8-10 years. It's starting with the music, and the top line usually appears in that. And it's usually, I have a feeling, I know what I want to, and it's usually sounds. And then the sounds morph into words. And that's how, I say it's a bit like archaeology. It's a bit like, or one of those kits the kids used to get like at a birthday party where you scrape away a piece of chalk and you suddenly see a skeleton there or something. You know what I mean? It's that thing of like with lyrics. For me, it's a bit like brush it. I have this thing like the song is fully formed. It's out there, and my job is to tune into that and to scrape it away. And my intuition is my guide. So I've been really struggling because I spent first 4 months of this year, really applying myself, doing that thing of getting down at 10 o'clock in the morning, doing it, going through till 3 or whatever. But I just wasn't connecting with anything. And I've been in a hole. But today I think I found the start of the trail, which was, which it's a sound, and it's the first time that, so I feel like, for me, it's about getting the palette.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're alone in that. I think quite a few people, with the sounds thing. I mean, when you say sounds in terms of the voice, in terms of your tunes, your words, you're talking like phonetics and.
No, it's about what's the musical palette? What's the sound going to be? So I've got the synths, I've got the Juno, the old Juno, and I've been playing with the arpeggiator on that and stuff like that. But I haven't. I keep on coming back to the guitar, and I found. I texted you about that Boss Looper. Yeah. So that Boss Looper, which is, found that, and then that Voice 3 Live Extreme, that TC Helicon. I know I'm getting a bit nerdy here, which is great for vocal harmonies. But the other thing that I had today was an old harmonizer, an Eventide. You know that Eventide delay that you have, the time factor? Yeah. They do one called a pitch factor. Yeah. And I've had it for 11 years and I've never used it.
Is that the green one or the blue one or something?
It's the red one.
Okay, right.
It's the red one. And
I've never used it either.
And I picked
it up today. It's too complicated.
I know,
They do too much.
Oh, tell me about it. That's
man, if you can't crack it, then none of us can crack it.
No, well, honestly, it's been on my shelf for 11 years, and I pulled it out. And for whatever reason, the sound is perfect. It wasn't 11 years ago, but there's something about the sound of it that just pulled me in, and I started playing with it, and it was great. So, I'm just at the start of it, and you're at the end of a cycle, and you have been writing. I know. I read that article, that interview that you gave in that songwriters thing, and the thing that really struck me was, well, I know what I want to ask you. How do you know when you're ready to write? I mean, you're not writing songs all the time, are you? Or are you?
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
you are.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, bits and and I think, I'll be honest. At the end of this, now having done this record, there's two ways to go. One is to either go and sit under a palm tree, literally go and sit under a palm tree, or in your mind do the equivalent and switch off.
Yeah.
Which I have done in the past, you know. I mean, not often, but I have done. I mean, Bernard Sumner and myself, I would drive Bernard mad because when we finished the electronic albums, because Bernard's really into sailing, that's his passion. And we would go out on a boat, and I've just found myself in the middle of the Mediterranean, or in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and I'd still be all buzzing about the record. But that would really, being around him, and he was very, very zen about that, like really slowing down. So I was able to. That was my experience of switching off. But as I know, it's probably a good idea for my mental health and the mental health of everyone around me if I switch off. But I think I'm going to try, stay on a roll. I'm not going to be, living completely nocturnally, but I'm going to try keeping the writing up, because I don't want the gears can sort of kind of rust over a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that it sounds incredibly kind of like a moan, and it doesn't mean to be. It doesn't mean to be a moan. But what one of the things that people don't realize, it happens so much when you have success, when you're blessed and lucky enough to have people want to be interested in you, is that the promotion and the talking and the all the stuff of promoting it, which you have to do for a number of reasons, to honour the work aside from anything else, and to pay everyone's mortgages and all of that. It takes you away from the space, the mental space of being really creative all the time.
Yeah.
Most people I know just can't write on tour. I tend to not be able to, because I'm just because I'm so busy, but I know that I can, because the second album, Playland, I deliberately wrote around festivals and on the bus, and we recorded that. The biggest song I've had for 25 years myself, Easy Money, was written on and recorded on the tour bus.
Wow.
We put the drums on afterwards, the vocal, everything, the guitars, the bass, all done on the bus. So I know I can do it. But to answer your question, I sort of I intend to be writing all the time. I intend to.
Have you ever had moments when you've just, nothing's come out, or what you've written you haven't connected with?
Yeah, I've had times when I've written a load of music that I've just not connected with. But I think archaeology is a good way of putting it. I think it's why some artists are crazy. A lot of artists are crazy because they have, if they're lucky, artists have this idea of perfection, and they will keep on going until they find this perfection. Now, I'm not saying I think all my songs are perfect, but you have this idea, Ed. You have this, you're pursuing a track, even with the songs that I was writing with other people, Morrissey or Kirsty or Matt or whatever. And let's put it this way: someone watching the process of watching you in a studio cutting the track, they would hear you do the track. 7 hours later, they go, "Why are they still working on it?
Yeah.
Why did they just change that? It sounded pretty good to me." 2 days later, why are they still doing the track? I mean, your band, famous for it. Why have they come back 3 months later and changed this arrangement? It's actually, the story that I know about Everything in Its Right Place is a great example.
Yeah.
And the stuff you told me about, OK Computer, and many people, fans even, will be watching that process and going, they've nailed it. Why are they pulling their hair out 5 days later? And the artists are crazy because you have this idea of perfection, or I've realized the promise that I was looking for. I've realized it, and you cannot rest until you realize it.
Yeah.
And on the face of it, it seems like peculiar behavior. Even on a more micro level, sitting around on day one of getting a drum sound together.
Yeah.
I mean, most people who think they want to be in the music industry, they want to do that for a few albums. And
do you know what do you know what's funny? Sorry to interrupt you, but what I think is amazing about music is, and you tapped on there, when a song is in its infancy, like when it's just, when you get that spark, what I find that's that magic that you realize in that moment, that the potential, right? You feel
Yeah.
the potential. And I think that is, and there's so much power in that. You need that right at the start to pull you through, like you said, all those cul-de-sacs, meanderings, all those things to come back. It is about realizing the potential, because it's like, I don't even think it's a mental thing. It's a feeling, isn't it? Or you might hear it in your head, potential of, it's much easier when it's you, when you're writing it, you're writing the lyrics, but it is an amazing thing that it is magic. It's a kind of, it's like
Yeah.
alchemy.
Yeah. And then, you know, the finishing it, you know, the promise is, that's a good word that you use there. It is so exciting.
Yeah.
And then, hey, listen, I actually think that I've got no problem with the concept of craft,
No.
because you and I have been, you know, I know when you started out, you played a lot of little gigs, a lot of gigs to very few people, and you had the van, and that's got to count for something. I'm proud that I did that. I'm proud that the Smiths did that, and then I'm proud that we went through, all of us collectively, the pressure of album 2 of Meat Is Murder. That was a lot. That was a lot of pressure. It went to #1, and in the UK.
What was the pressure on that? Was the pressure
Well, the
following up
pressure
what
was,
you'd done?
for me, the pressure was because from the minute Hand in Glove came out,
Yeah.
a lot of the world we were in, which was the music press and alternative culture, let's say student culture, just immediately said, we're like, these guys are the second coming.
Yeah.
And unless you're a complete egomaniac, you kind of go, oh shit. You know, we knew we were good, and I believed in us, but we'd only had like 9 songs.
Yeah.
And then the first album did well, and the trajectory, we were being blown up. I mean, in your case, I guess, you know,
It was
following
very
up,
different.
but following up the Benzo, you know, I mean, you know, and
But we
so
didn't. It was. I think it was really different. You guys had that amazing. You were amazing out of the blocks. We were like really slow out of the blocks. Apart from like maybe we had a good start, a false start with Creep, but it was we. Yeah, I mean, we were like the slow burners, if you like. Whereas you guys were like, you had the pressure because you were the coolest band
there
in,
was it was good for us,
and the best music as well. You were the best.
thank you. Well, it was, you know, we felt like that was being put on us, and we had to live up to that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you know, that wasn't easy, but we did it. And I'm very proud of all of us for doing that. But that is all part, when I say craft, I include that.
Yeah.
I include the pressure. And, you know, I didn't just waltz into The Queen Is Dead and go, hey, this is going to be legendary. Step back, everybody. This is going to be, just
wait a sec.
Give me some room.
Being made.
Give me some room. Come and see me in 12 weeks' time, and you know,
No.
and you know, I was kind of like, all the way through that record, I was like, what's that? Food, what's that? Sleep, what's that? And
can I ask you? Sorry,
yeah,
just to interrupt you. Can I? Because this is fun. Because for me, we've never in the 20 years we've been friends, we've never really spoken about the Smiths. We did a little bit, but can I put my fanboy head on a sec?
Please do, Edward.
Okay, so finally, after 20 years.
See,
fine. It's interesting. So with the songs on the Queen on Meat Is Murder, when the Smiths came out, you hadn't written any of the songs for Meat Is Murder at that stage. They all came in the subsequent touring and that whole period, right?
yeah, we wrote kind of on the hoof as we went. And one of the things that we did was, let's write a single.
Yeah.
Let's write a second single in between records.
Yeah.
When we finished Meat Is Murder, for example, as soon as that was finished, we wrote How Soon Is Now and Please, 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 and what was the other one? And William, and you know, we were like, well, let's do this now.
Amazing.
But and there was no like, let's save it for the album. I think because we were just such single freaks as well,
Yeah.
and it was going right. What we were doing was going well. I don't mean in a career way. I mean, in fans liked it, and
But it
we
was
liked it.
extraordinary because honestly, you know, and I can say this now because I've got my fan head on. I cannot think of another band, and you know, I was hooked in from. My story is the way I got into the Smiths. I had a very cool friend called Jason Haynes, who had an elder brother called Spanner, and Spanner used to go to the King's Road, and he'd come back to Abingdon in Oxfordshire, which wasn't a very cool place. But Jason, from his older brother, and so we had a very cool music teacher called Mr. Finlow, and he was one of those guys who, like, I think next lesson I'd like you to come in and bring a song that you all will play, and sort of will music appreciation. So I brought in Straight to Hell by the Clash because I was really into combat rock at the time. I loved it. Great, yeah. And I still think that track is genius.
The album's great.
It's great.
Such a great album, yeah.
It's really like the way they absorbed all that New York funk thing and early, you know, hip hop, etc. And then my mate Jace Haynes came and he played Back to the Old House. And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is so melodic and so haunting. And then I was completely pulled in. And I think I then saw you on Top of the Pops. But I cannot think, and I bought basically, once I had some money, so it would have been after The Queen is Dead because I didn't have enough money before that. But I bought every 12-inch. I haven't told you this. I've got all your 12 inches, and all the B-sides were amazing as well. And for us as a band, you know, Radiohead, because we formed in 1985, you were the benchmark. There was never we knew that even if it was a B-side, it still got the same love and attention and craft and integrity and everything that, you know, we loved that. And it was, honestly, it was, you were amazing for the fans. And it wasn't, you know, it strikes me as a songwriter, it must have been incredible. You were in this incredible purple patch, right? I mean, you continued it on, but I mean, there aren't many people who've done that.
Well, thanks. I mean, yeah, I had no idea. I've known you for 20 years. I knew you liked the band, Ed, but I didn't.
I've got all the 12 inches from, you know, Ask. I've got all everything, all the, you know.
Mr. Finlow.
Yeah, Mr. Finlow.
No, well, but you know, well, I think a lot of Smiths fans knew that we really gave a shit. They loved it. First and foremost, they loved what we were putting out, and the song spoke to them, and they thought we were a band for them. But I think you can hear that there's a lot of this. It's not that there's not filler, but everything's intense. Even the mellow ones are intense. You know, well, you know, pretty much everything. You know, there might be a couple maybe if I'm being really, really, you know, serious about it. But generally, it's all, you know, Half a Person, which is a really one of my favorites, is a really dreamy track. It's intensely focused all the way through. There's no when some of the music kind of drifts by, that was done very, very deliberately, you know. And the sound of Strange Ways, now finally people will believe me when I was saying it, but at the time it wasn't like it was unfinished because we were splitting up. Or I went into that record really wanting to make a record that had more space in it. Yeah. You know, The Queen is Dead is so dense. And I love that we had the discipline, but even that was intense. You know, like our decision to say, I can remember every note of the music we made. Wow. And so on Happy Birthday, I deliberately, the electric guitar is just these kind of... Love them. The kind of weird swells, like, you know.
They're so emotive.
It's kind of like...
It's so emotive, Johnny. That guitar, those guitar parts, I fucking love that song.
Yeah, I always loved it.
It's so moving.
I love that song. And so, you know, you have the usual, the usual shit from some areas of the press, like, you know, just trying to kind of not believe when I said that was all deliberate. You know, I was very, very inspired on going into that record by the White Album. I was really kind of obsessed with the White
What, on
Album.
Strange Ways?
Yeah, I was obsessed with the White Album, and I was also obsessed with the Genie.
Wow.
And so that's why I started something sounds like Mick Ronson.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
kind of, it sounds kind of more like it sounds more like Cracked Actor of
Yeah.
Insane.
It's so
But,
interesting because
yeah.
about the sound of that record. Because you know, all your albums sounded really different. And I think for me, I mean, I love the sound of all of them. And for me, I always used to think that because you did Meat as Murder, you did at Amazon, didn't you?
Yeah.
I always, yeah, and it always sounded quite trebly, quite kind of tinny, which was a great sound. But then when you remastered it, you brought out all those other frequencies. But the thing about Strange Ways that I love is the sound of it. It's almost like a classic album sound. And I don't mean that. It's like it's like Rumors, or it's like, you know, it's got that richness that it's so beautiful. It was
Well, that's because we didn't pack it.
Right.
And that took a discipline. So coming back to so even when we were being minimalist for us, I won't share you, things like that.
Yeah.
That was deliberate. It wasn't because we kind of went, that'll do. Yeah. You know, it would have been easier, if anything, to like not have the discipline. So we just really cared. We cared enough on Queen is Dead, say, or How Soon Is Now, to really spend a lot of time finding trippy sounds. And then we cared enough on Strange Ways to leave it and let it breathe. So it was always very careful. Very careful and focused and deliberate. So I'm very proud of all of that. Side of it.
I can't believe we're having this conversation now, because you know, I've never been a fanboy with you, but Death of a Disco Dancer, like fucking hell. I mean, you know, the guitar on that and the way that it builds, and it's just listen, you know, I'll tell you what was interesting. Okay, so you know this. I told you, well, you kind of guessed it, and I've been very vocal about it. You were like, I think when I heard your guitar playing, for me it was not only a sonic thing, but it's the emotion. And I think that, like, I completely was drawn in. And so you were like, as a kid who's like 15 years old and who's just picking up a guitar first time, I'd never heard Led Zeppelin. I hadn't heard the Stooges. It was all about, at that time, it was all, I guess my ears sort of pricked up around the time of, I mentioned Andy Summers around the Police, kind of his thing, but really it was like McGeoch with Susie, Spellbound, and Israel and all that. And we've, you know, but then it was like, and it was you and The Edge, and I kind of think, and Will Sargent as well, which we, you know, I know that you've been hooking up with him.
Right. I hear that in your playing.
Well, I mean, I feel like so blessed because I didn't hear a Led Zeppelin record till I was 28, and I certainly was never going to bend a note, you know. And so I feel really lucky that we came up at this time of these, you know, because music was very, very tribal then. Certainly where I was, and if your friends didn't have a Stooges record, or you didn't have an older brother or sister with that, or a Zeppelin record, you'd never hear it. So it was literally what was on John Peel, what was on Radio 1. And but my point was, I think what was amazing is that, so I started like following with you, and I remember when the first electronic single came out, Getting Away with It.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, it's like, it was almost like the most perfect thing. It was like you'd gone to you know, I think what you've been, and I'm, you know, I don't normally do this, and it's slightly weird because we're being public about usually a conversation that we have very privately, but it's a nice opportunity. I just think you continue to do this, you've got this extraordinary ability for melody and just songwriting. And, you know, I think, you know, all the stuff you did with I was so into Mind Bomb, and then Dusk. Oh, Dusk was the sound of, for me, was when we were touring around America in '93. But
I mean, that's amazing. Well, you know, I mean, that's, you know, you know, I mean, you get it, Ed. You know,
I
you
feel
really
it, and
get it. You know,
I think what a lot of people get, and I'm so lucky because I understand a bit of the craft that a lot of people. But I think what you do, not only there's so much emotion and beauty. I think that's the thing. What you play, there's such.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's such.
Well,
It's
I mean, it's a simplistic. Yeah, I think when I'm, you know, hearing you
so
talking
that's
about
quite
it.
hard to follow. I know that's quite. I
No,
know
no,
because
I
I'm the one
understand.
that's.
No, Ed, what it is that there's, to be honest, I think really there's no getting around it. That, you know, the missing, I guess the missing word, the word that ties it all together, I think, which was unusual, I think, is femininity. Really,
Yeah.
I think I didn't realize I was into femininity in clothes.
Yeah.
Very much so, because I hung out with girls so much as a kid. You know, like my sister's only 11 months younger than me, and we were brought up pretty much, can't really till I was about maybe till we were about 10 or 11. We were kind of like brought up like twins, and we stayed really tight till we were in our teens. You know, 13, 14, and then you know, when all my mates started chasing after her, then, you know, I had to either get rid of my mate, so I had to stop spending less time with her. But she was, but her and her friends, you know, and I grew up on a housing estate that was just overrun with kids.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and so, you know, and being very interested in girls and very interested in the culture. You know, like me and my sister at 10, 11, 12 were very, very into fashion, street fashion, clothes, and we go up to people on the bus. Where'd you get the jumper? Where'd you get those shoes? It's a very working class thing. It might even be a very northern thing.
Yeah.
And where'd you get a haircut? Strange, but very important. And
I think that's quite a northern thing. You know, I've come into Manchester the first time. The thing that really struck me coming from down south, how people get dressed up on a Friday and Saturday night.
yeah.
It's a really big thing, isn't it? It's a massive.
Well, now it's happening in the afternoon, which seriously, if you go to Manchester on a Friday, certainly Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon, particularly the girls, it's something I've noticed since the lockdown has eased off a little. It's amazing. Wow. They are really bringing it at 2 in the afternoon, it's like what you would normally have seen at 2:30 a.m. Or 11 p.m. They look amazing. It's really amazing. It's the thing I really noticed. So, but I think that was a big part of my personality, a big part of my character. And then, you know, and I had to think about it after I got known, and I had to, you know, you explain what you're about. But I definitely, I thought in 78, you know, when you're 14, 15, 16, I believe that, you know, one thing that 15, 16-year-olds are just absolutely amazing at is spotting bullshit.
Absolutely.
That's
teenagers, isn't it?
They're not as amazing as they think they are, nor was I. But at spotting bullshit in your teachers, in society, in your parents, all of that, they are great at it. And it's a difficult thing to carry around. And I was just going along, absorbing everything about guitar culture, talking like 77, 78, I was 14. And I just started seeing the regular guys in rock bands. I just thought they were really macho, and I thought that was really old fashioned. I'm not being kind of, you know, right on here. It was just really old fashioned. And I kind of thought that, you know, I just assumed that wasn't, I didn't think I was special in that. I just thought it was old fashioned. And then as I got older, and, you know, I mean, when I wrote my autobiography a few years ago, from an adult's point of view, you know, and having grown up kids of my own and stuff, I do see that in that regard, you know, my sensibilities were kind of half lad, running around as a guitar playing lad, but also some very kind of very sort of pro Perry girls. They were my heroes around Manchester. I used to see them, and they just looked great because they were androgynous. See, they were half between. They kind of looked quite boyish, and I realised that I could kind of turn myself into that. So that, you know, that was a big part of what I did, really.
I think you were really important. It's funny, but like particularly you guys, were so influential in culture, certainly for me as a teenager. I mean, you were the reason, the Smiths were a good reason why one of my courses at Manchester University was feminism, you know. And I
Right.
think it was a brilliant time because you kind of exuded that. And it was really quite weird. I found the 90s really fucking weird because when the whole lad culture came back, and I was just like, because I remember as a band that sort of came back, and we certainly weren't part of the kind of like Loaded and Nuts magazine brigade. And it was so weird because I thought we'd done that. I thought that went out years ago.
Yeah.
That's like Benny Hill. That's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
back in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
70s. And I
Yeah.
thought
And
it was like this huge regression in the 90s. We'd kind of, you know, feminism, it was interesting. When I studied feminism, it was really hardcore. It was fascinating, but really hardcore in the sense of, you know, hardcore feminism, which is, I can't even remember a lot of it, but I remember being, wow, this is, it was very 80s. It's very 80s, like full on kind of, sort of, I wouldn't say the Derek Hatton of feminism, but do you know what I mean? That kind of extreme version of feminism.
hardline. Yeah.
Really hardline, kind of like basically women should get rid of should have mass hysterectomies because reproduction and having babies is at the heart of, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
of this inequality. So all this stuff. But it was so interesting. Like when the 90s came along, we'd been through that, and we sort of, and it was really cool, a lot of that 80s stuff. Then the 90s came along, and it was like, hang on a sec, what? You know, it's like, it was such a strange thing. I mean, I guess that's what happens in culture. You know, each generation reacts to the previous one. But I don't know if you felt the same thing in the 90s. It was just like, hang on
Yeah,
a sec.
no, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, the culture. You know, there's a lot of reasons for it. You know, politically and otherwise, and everything
Yeah,
got the bar really lowered. I think. You know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, luckily now the younger generation that I'm privy to, not everybody's perfect by any means, and you can't. Okay, I am going to generalize, but you know what is endearing though now is that the the concerns of the younger generation now, I'm talking, say, you know, people leaving school age to mid-20s, over the last sort of 10 years, they're, you know, the rights, gender rights and gender equality, you know, for trans people or whoever, you know, that is entirely a consequence of the younger generation. I'm not saying
yes,
my generation wouldn't have done that, but we didn't. The amazing transformation and the awareness that some people have to get on board with
yeah,
about gender equality
yeah,
of all sorts is entirely down to the generation of young people who may be up to their mid-30s now.
yeah,
And that is really fucking a brilliant thing.
yeah,
You know, they've got there's a lot of global concerns, a lot of things, but they changed the world there. So, you know, there's, you know, very lucky that, and I guess you are too, that, you know, we still play to several young folk, you know, they listen to our records, they come to our shows and they interact, you know,
yeah,
and you get a vibe. And I'm very, you know, I'm impressed with the times are more,
yeah.
in that regard, the times are more impressive than what you're describing. But to go back to the guitar sound in a way, you know, I mean, it's a long conversation, but I was thinking that, see, the Smiths played a few gigs with the Cocteau Twins.
Yeah, of course, that's another one. Robin Guthrie.
And Robin Guthrie had that down.
Yeah,
You know, he was a guy who had that down, and what Liz was doing vocally and with
yeah,
her presence.
yeah.
It was, you know, there were a lot of really, there were
You're right. Robert
it
Smith.
I mean, right.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert's got it in his voice. He's
Yeah.
got it in his guitar playing.
Yeah.
You know, he's a really good, very, very good example of what was happening on the stage that did represent my generation of. He's older than me, but I saw the Cure early gigs.
Yeah.
You know, his voice was beautiful, his face was beautiful, his guitar playing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think he stayed true to his
Well,
values when you hear his songs. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, you're right. It was that you spread the net wide, and there were people like Geordie.
Yeah.
Geordie had a great sound.
Well,
Billy Duffy, your mate, your pal Billy.
yeah, as you said, well, of course, Billy, but
I
Will
love Billy's,
Sargent,
but Will Sargent. Will Sargent was like, you know, the king of 12 string and delay and reverb, like making your guitar sound like it's come from the deepest cavern on the planet, you know, on the earth. And
yeah, well, do you know Will's just put autobiography out, or it's just about to be out?
oh wow, that would be great,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that'd be great. And he's, you know, he uses one of your sustainer
I know.
strats, man.
I heard. Oh, well, you hooked us up, and it was so funny because when he sent me an email. So for people out there, Johnny is a friend of Will's, and we sent him one of my strats, and he got on with it, and I was talking because it was funny because you know, he was another one who I was sort of I loved the Bunnymen. I thought the Bunnymen were just it was like they had their own world. The Bunnymen sound was incredible. And it's funny when he described his guitar playing or like the kind of sounds that he was after. I was just like, oh, yeah, I totally get that. That's how you know,
Oh, did
you
he?
know.
Right, did he do? What was that
Yeah,
to you?
yeah,
With a conversation?
he said
I'm just
that.
going to
He
move
said,
this light, Ed, because I'm
yeah,
getting a
yeah.
bit.
I've had to alter the light. So he was great because it was funny. He said something about I want my guitar to sound like if you imagine what. No, I know what he said. It's something that I got obsessed with about imagining what music might sound like in space.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and I definitely went through a period of like getting all cosmic and thinking, and it's still there, parts of it, but thinking what would that sound like? Or you know how I bang on about that film Interstellar, that idea of being in space and and trying to find a sound that evokes the feeling of how it might feel in. Anyway, you know.
Did you like the what was the Brad Pitt space film? What was
Oh,
that?
I thought that was rubbish. Ad Astra.
Yeah, is that so? Is that not happening now?
Oh man, I was so disappointed because Max Richter does the score, and I really like Max Richter's stuff. I think he's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Me too.
You think
Yeah,
it's good, right?
yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is right up my Strasse, you know. And I think the problem is I watched it on a flight, which can go either way, as you know, can't it? You can either be weeping about, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Crying at Dumb and Dumber. Oh my God, this is brilliant.
Exactly.
I tell you a funny story. I've been on you remember those old days where you're on a plane and you had the film in the economy class and you have it on the wall at the front of that section. So Radiohead touring in about 94 in America, and we have to do an internal flight, and we're in the back part of the plane in economy, and they show. And you wouldn't have equated Radiohead with the film Dumb and Dumber, right? Especially at that time, serious young men. I remember,
Intellectuals.
yeah, intellectuals. We had those funny old headphones, you know, the plastic things that you put in that have the tubes that go into
Yeah.
that go into the arm. There's Dumb and Dumb over there, and I am laughing. I'm laughing so much and I'm trying to hide it. And then I look across and there's Tom in hysterics, there's Johnny in hysterics, there's everyone in hysterics at Dumb and Dumber. So anyway, I've slightly digressed.
Is it good? Do you still stand by that?
Well, I haven't seen it since that flight back in 19.
Oh, right. I'm gonna have to watch it now.
No, it might not be. It might anyway. But no.
So what are you up to? Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Is your your orientation now? Is you've not got gigs booked?
I cancelled everything.
Touring with EOB.
Yeah, I was gonna go out touring this year, but I cancelled it because I felt I didn't feel I was in the right space. I had that feeling, which I was completely honest with myself, and I was just like, I'm dreading this. I'm absolutely dreading this. And you know better than me, that's no way to go out there on tour. You have to be carrying a light. You've got to have a fire in your belly. You've got to be wanting to engage. And I got depressed. I fell into a hole that I hadn't been in for a long, long time. And so I talked to the managers and I said, I don't think I'm ready for this. And the way that what I've done is I'm basically reframed this next year as a kind of, people might call it a sabbatical, but the idea is no pressure. and I'm just gonna, you know, I told you a little bit. I'm trying to get more into. I'm letting go of a load of shit. Letting go. I've realized that the way that I've been programmed is not sustainable, and so I've been doing a lot of work, a lot of inner work, and yeah, so that's what I'm doing. And it's funny because I think for me it's like, you know, like you said, teenagers are you know, they're the biggest bullshit detectors. I find that with music, and
Yeah.
and for me, that early part of the year when I was really in a dark place and I was doing the music, but I was just not connecting with it, and the music was telling me, you're not going to connect with this unless you change, unless something's not right here. So
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I'm thankful. I've been through a dark night of the soul like many people, and do you know what? I'm really, no self-pity, because I actually think these are really important moments, and you have the choice in life. And I know I'm very lucky, because it's not like I have to hold down a 9 to 5. It's not like I have to go to work to feed the kids, or, you know, I'm on benefits. I mean, I'm very lucky because I can completely immerse myself in it in the way that not through what I can do the work. I've got time to do the work, and I
Yeah.
know what I have to do, and I have to do this. So that's what I'm doing. But what's interesting is I'm sort of doing music, but I'm not doing music as a sense of, oh, I've got to have a song, or I'm going to record this. It's more a sense of, this is what's coming out at this time. And there's
Yeah.
no, do you know
Yeah.
what? I put so much weight on the music. I put so much weight on everything that I've done in the past. And I'm just exhausted with that. And I'm trying to get to a place where I now flow more. And I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like, and I'm not judging it by like, shit, is this, you know, I can't do it anymore, Johnny. I'm fucking exhausted.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's all these different this aspects of the creative, you know, the you know, the not dilemma, but you know, the disposition, or you
Yeah.
know, yeah, it is definitely a disposition. I had it as a kid. I had a song on my last album called The Comet, and I had this tune, and it was you know, I really liked it. It was a sort of
Which
effortless,
which one?
well, day in, day out. It's an
Yeah, great.
effortless kind of pop tune, and
Yeah.
I loved the melody, and I had it all, and it was all rocking, but it was driving me absolutely crazy, and really, really driving me nuts. And I was like, this is even kind of like a pretty straightforward tune, and why anyway? Every bus stop, every road sign I went past, you know, is that the title? Is that the title? Yeah, Ashton on Mersey.
I
You know,
know.
it's Chilwell, Cirencester. What rhymes with just, man, driving
Yeah.
myself crazy. And every morning I'd be like, nope, I didn't get it last night. I didn't get it. And then one morning, and he's really driving me out. And I kind of went, it's day in and day out. And I kind of went,
There you go.
write the song about being crazy with this personality you've got.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, our friend Neil Finn is pretty good.
He's not bad, is he?
He's not bad. That song that we played in Seven Worlds, Driving Me Mad.
Yeah.
I thought it was such a clever song, because you could look at that and go, oh, it's a song about not being able to write a song. Well, for a non-song, it's pretty good, you know. And that song about the torment of this thing you're describing, Ed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope, you know, one thing. Have you ever seen Francis Ford Coppola, the documentary To the Heart of Darkness?
I love it.
It's called Heart. That will make you feel better.
I got Susan with the iPhone out there filming me now.
Exactly. She's just hearing you, just like you're going to be kicking the dog, like hitting the kids. Oh,
it's so good, isn't it? It's so good. It's just, in fact, I mean, it's funny. I actually prefer it to the film. That film I used to love as a kid, but as you get older, it's kind of. I want to just ask you something, because I've only got one note. Have you seen? I completely digress here. Have you checked out on Apple TV the new Asif Kapada documentary series 1971?
No.
Oh my God!
Wow.
So
Wow.
he did the Amy
Yeah.
Winehouse and the Senna. I mean, I love everything he's done is brilliant, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, he is.
So
Yeah.
he's done this series called 1971, and we're about 7 episodes in. They're an hour each, and it's about that year and music and politics. And holy moly! I mean, I've the amount of albums that came out in that year that are just Elton John does a bit of you don't see him, but he's a talking head. He said the incredible thing about that year was there would have been about 10 albums a week that would come out that were classic. I mean, he might have
Wow.
been over-egging it slightly, but at least there was at least one or two albums every week that was released. That you've got Hunky Dory, obviously you got What's Going On. I mean, it's an unbelievable year. Sly and the Family, There's a Right Go. I mean, John Martin. I mean, and it goes into. It's good because it flips over. It's sort of transatlantic, so you get a bit of Bowie, obviously, and a bit of. You'll love the Mark Bolan stuff,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
T-Rex footage.
Yeah, right. Right.
But then you go across and how it's kicking off in America with the anti-Vietnam movement. And you know what struck me? It's really interesting. So last night we watched a couple of episodes, and one was sort of almost dedicated to, do you remember Angela Davis, who was
Sure, yeah.
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 And I was watching that, and I was going, Susan and I were going, like, I mean, I knew about Angela Davis, but I didn't know about the detail, I
No,
knew
me neither, no.
but the thing that struck me watching it was like, why weren't we learning this at school? Why were we learning about Henry VIII and his fucking 6 wives?
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's enough to make you conspiracy theorists when you start thinking about it. Are we deliberately? I really think that they deliberately keep this really interesting but topical, relevant part of our recent history out of children's syllabus because it gets people questioning the status quo.
100%. They in the England, I mean, certainly when I was a kid, did you go to a Catholic school?
No.
Well, in Catholic school, it's even more so. Everything ends with, and that's why this person is a martyr. And, and then that's why this person became a saint. And you kind of like, what? America, this is me at 12. What was, America had a civil war, right? I'm pretty sure I've heard the words the American Civil War. Miss, sir. And, it's like, well, did someone get hung, drawn and quartered for the Lord? Then you don't need to know about that.
Yeah.
And certainly, again, I kind of, it's one of those things when I wrote my book, I thought that writing about my school days, this high school days, was going to be really quick. Because that happens when you're writing a book, an autobiography. You think, oh, this bit's going to be tough. I need to ask my family about what happened here, and I've got to get this right. And well, you should do that when you go into it. That's what I did, and I just thought, well, when I get to do the bit about high school, that's going to be kind of a breeze. I'll tell some stories about getting a chalk duster thrown at me and meeting Andy Rourke and bunking off and all will be well. And when I actually sat down, I ended up getting really quite angry. I didn't realize I was harboring this kind of resentment. And that was one of the reasons. That was the history, the lack of the agenda, which I put down to really a social agenda.
Yeah.
Certainly when I was a kid. I think times are different now. I wouldn't know. But for us, I mean, well, that 1971 sounds really right up my street. I can't wait to check that out. I mean, I watched the lockdown thing. We've all been watching lots of television, and but I watched Ken Burns' Vietnam series.
I haven't seen that. Really,
it's the best. Yeah, I mean, I saw it when it came out, but it's just really incredible as one might expect. And the Ken Burns jazz series is really good as well, particularly the late '60s stuff. But that's a really fascinating time that the American. Well, as well. I watched. I found myself. Something came up on my timeline, and I watched when you were younger, the rock and roll years, right?
Used to love that on BBC Two.
Yeah. And I saw I went on 1975, 76 when I was a little kid. I watched that, and the bombings in this country on the mainland, the hostages, the hijacks, the insane, arrogant unaccountability of the government. I was thinking, wow, this rings a lot of bells.
Did you? It's interesting because the whole Irish thing was like a massive thing when we were growing up, and you obviously, your parents were Irish, but you were living in, you know, a big Irish community, right?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Because it was weird for me. My grandparents are Irish, and I grew up in a household where my dad was like very, very, very. You were known you were Irish, and obviously having as an Irish surname. But it was really interesting because I'd grown up in very, very white middle class Oxford. You felt like a pariah with an Irish name, and there were no kids at my school. Like, it was a Church of England school, no Catholics. I was like a Catholic, but there was, and I had this conversation. It was interesting because, you know, I don't know if this was this a similar experience for you in Manchester, or were there so many of you that it was like, well, you know, that wasn't an issue?
No, I didn't carry it around, but you just got used to it, and also it was sort of probably 10 years up, so probably 10 years before the, so yeah, I just kind of took it for normal that some people were going to call you an Irish pig. I got called an Irish pig by a teacher once, and it was a teacher that I thought I liked.
Wow.
And that was heavy. That was that was a heavy thing. And
I got beaten up at school, but when the Bobby Sands thing was happening, someone, you know, and it was like, you know, the propaganda that was even on the news, and it was just like the way it was portrayed was like these guys were like scum, right? When they were political prisoners.
Yeah.
And I remember,
I know my parents, when something kicked off, my parents are from Southern Ireland and who aren't political, particularly, and certainly not radically political.
Yeah.
And just got on with everybody and were very much respected and just got on with life. You know, I think you know, it affected them a little bit when there was a lot of stuff kicking off. Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting. I had this conversation with a guy. The only other Irish guy I knew came from Oxford, a guy called Colin Graney. And I said to Colin a few years back, because he used to cut my hair, and I said, and we were talking about this because he came over from Limerick in like 78, 79 to Oxford. And I knew the answer to the question I was asking him, but I said to him, because obviously by the end of the 80s and the 90s, it's all changed. And that's not just because of the peace process that came later. Yeah. And I said to him, I said, what was it that changed it? And he said, well, I'm not a fan of the band. He said, but you too. And I said, I remember that as a fan. And also I would say, because going to a U2 gig in like 1984, it was the first time there was a sense of pride in something Irish. And, you know, you'd see the Trickler at a gig and it wasn't like a pro-IRA thing. It was like, it was tapping into this kind of lineage of Irish. I mean, I think the Unforgettable Fire is like, it's like Irish spirituality. It's got feelings, I think, when you read Seamus Heaney and stuff like that. But also I would say that you and Morrissey, because of your obvious Irish names, there was this whole, like what you did, the music kind of really made it a very positive thing. And suddenly, like, you know, all the kids at school who were sneering at you because you got an Irish name or like, you know, whatever, they were like, oh yeah, you two are fucking great. Oh yeah, I love the Smith. You know, it was, and I think I think you two particularly played a really, really important part in that.
Yeah, I think from what I think you're right. You know, they were really, of course, a massive part of it. I think that somewhat not long after that, I think what Roy Keane was doing with the Irish, in the Irish football team.
Totally. Well, the 1990 World Cup, that Irish football team was amazing. Jack Charlton.
Yeah, and the vibe. I mean, now you mean like Irish are just like proud. I mean, they'll always be proud, but I mean, just on the stuff that I follow over the last few years, you know, well, I think I might have sent you a link to the Blind Boy podcast.
Yeah, it's great.
He's a really interesting guy. Very, very talented, very funny. You know, very evolved. This is someone who's evolving all the time. Very informed, and open, and a good advert for young, not just Irish men, young men. You know, he's a you know, I really rate him. And then of course bands wise, Fontaine's DC.
Great.
You know, wow, what's there to not like? They're great.
Yeah.
And, I'm even hearing that I think they've recorded even the third album now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the second album came out really quick.
Yeah.
So, you know, just very happening. I always thought Ireland, for me, I always thought Ireland was dead cool. I always had a kind of, I think it was Hatful of Hollow, I scratched Ian, which is my little brother, and Air, EIRE.
Yeah, nice.
As a kind of like, as a declaration that the Smiths were proud of our Irish roots. It was my kind of thing, really, and it's informed me in a, I don't bang on about it too much, but since, you know, but it really has informed me in a massive way. Why I don't bang on about it is my parents never banged on about it, but if you grow up around the accent all the time, you know, and the iconography, and you know, I think it's, you know, you can't help but be absolutely massively informed by it. And me and my sister, I felt like we were like, you know, we were considered by me and some other kids, we were definitely considered as being from an Irish family, and I thought it was great. I thought it was great. You know, still there, you know.
It's funny because we're going to Manchester in 1987. Actually, it was just, I remember that whole sense of first time living in a big city. Okay, as a student, but I was aware of the Irishness of Manchester, of the north. And
well,
that
you
was,
will, because you know, because of your background as well. Do you know, I was thinking today actually, Ed, about talking to you, and I was wondering. I thought there's a lot of people who follow you who probably aren't quite as aware of how that you lived in Manchester for quite a while, and that you really have got a.
I loved it.
You don't just love it, but you know Manchester very well, don't you?
Well, what I did was, I mean, fanboy head again. I went up to Manchester because of the music scene, and particularly because of you guys. But I was completely, for me, I fell in love with the romance of the city. So Manchester, I can explain to everyone else, but you remember what Manchester was in 1987. It was a post-industrial city. No, there'd been no developments. There was, you know, the north side and Tibb Street and all these places, and there was. I was just in love with the city because I'd wander around, and I had a girlfriend who used to cycle, and I used to borrow a bike, and so of an evening we just go and cycle around the centre of Manchester, and like, you know, these deserted red brick warehouses that I just thought there was such there was a vibe there. There was a spirit there that I loved. Oxford's a very different place. And of course, I've been living in the countryside for 10 years, but Oxford was a city of Oxford University. It's not a real city. It's a town, but it's not a big city like Manchester. No. And no. I was just in awe of it. I mean, I loved one of the things I love living in a city is I love exploring a city. So when I first moved to London with Susan, we'd go out walking every Sunday, and we'd spend all day walking. We'd just meander through the East End or end up on the South Bank or whatever. And it was the same thing in Manchester, and I loved it. And, you know, then you couple it with the music scene that was happening and all these amazing venues, like, you know, everyone talks about the Hacienda, which was obviously great, but I love places like, do you remember, it's sometimes called the Playpen or 42nd Street?
42nd Street, sure, yeah.
On a Tuesday night, I was talking to John Robb about this. On Tuesday night, Marky Smith always used to be there, but I swear the music was the best. I mean, the Hacienda, it was cool and really good, but the music on a Tuesday night, the guy would just, it was all over the shop. It was incredible. So I loved that.
The Roadhouse was going there.
The Roadhouse.
And the International.
Oh man, the International 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The amount of gigs I saw, you know, Gil Scott-Heron there at the International 1, you know, half strung out doing a 3-hour set, you know, with 300 people there. I mean, because I came from a city where there were no gigs. You know, you came through in 1985. It was and you know, was it? Yeah, it was 85. May
with James
supporting. Yeah. And my girlfriend went at the time, and she was completely besotted with you. And she came back and she said, "I'm in love with Johnny Marr." And I said, right, great." Seriously, but it was. I loved it. And then, of course, you know, I get taken to Old Trafford by a friend of mine and stand on the Stretford end for the first time, and I'm like, holy moly! And it could have been Kippax, you know.
Did,
It could.
did you get work done? Seriously?
Yeah.
Did you?
No, no, no. I
Because
didn't.
because
I didn't.
you arrived in, you know, so much is made in this of the 60s, Carnaby Street
Yeah.
65, 66, 67, or Haight Ashbury 1967 in San Francisco. Manchester in 87, 88, 89, a couple of years after when it got milked,
Yeah.
was culturally that busy and that revolutionary.
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. 88 was when the nascent real seeds of that Manchester thing, and it wasn't just about debauchery. Now,
No.
of course, hedonism was a big part of it because it was a youth movement, but also because there was a key new drug involved.
Yeah.
But people who really got into that didn't feel the nature of MDMA, and it being a communal thing. It didn't feel like it was a hedonistic experience. It felt like the way people talk about LSD in the 60s. It was without doubt. I don't want to sound irresponsible here, but the feeling was definitely of like opening doors for people, bringing people together. A lot of people who were formerly not very nice got a lot nicer.
Yeah.
And that was great, obviously. And then, but coinciding with that was the digital technology. I mean, you can see it in the story of where electronics started in 88, and our very first songwriting session, Bernard goes to his bag, and I'm, you know, pull my guitar out and plugging in my pedals, and he pulls out a Macintosh SE30.
Wow.
And that was like such an important member of the band, and this was new to me. I mean, the Smiths, we had computerized mixing desks, and we had the Akai sampler on Strange Ways. There's a photo inside it that Angie took of me listening to the mix, and you can see the sampler in the background. So the Smiths were by no means Luddites.
Yeah.
I had the emulator too at the start of Last Night I Dreamt, and that was because of Bowie and, you know, all of this business. But anyway, but the Mac SE30, and that was, you know, that was a big part of the sound, not just of electronic, of everybody. 808 State, guy called Gerald, but it felt like there was a tsunami behind us. We weren't aware of it until it happened. But what was happening, I can only speak for myself and Bernard, was while we were starting with electronic and while our peers were kicking things around with samplers and in studios, there was behind us that we weren't aware of, this tsunami of digital revolution that was about to happen, that suddenly digital synths, DX7s and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But within a year, people are making their own flyers, people are producing their own T-shirts, everyone is dressed the same but different to the mainstream. So you'd walk around on a Saturday morning, you know, everyone having been out on the Friday or on a Sunday, and you just start to see these pockets of people who had radically the same clothes as you, 18-inch flares, curtain haircuts,
Joe Blogs,
all of that. But we weren't all going, oh, we're all getting fucked up. No. That was down in the pecking order. What that drug was facilitating was this communal feeling and people doing new things. It was an amazing time, and it was in my hometown. Yeah. And I was a dyed-in-the-wool townie, and still am. You know, having grown up in the inner city and worked there in Saturday jobs and all of that. And it was sort of basically starting to develop in front of my eyes and in my house and in other people's places, and then similarly around the rest of the country. With people like Shum and Danny Rampling and Paul Oakenfold and Mark Moore, S-Express, and all of this stuff. But Manchester was the place that it all came together. There's something about the Industrial Revolution, and something about the university, and something about the vibe of the place that, I guess, one word, hacienda.
Well, yeah, it's funny. And it's funny, I always used to feel really guilty about, like, I was always trying to play down my student credentials when I was in Manchester, because I didn't want to be, you know, another fucking student. But it was interesting when I spoke to John Robb about it. He was like, no, he said, the amount of students in Manchester is key to help, you know, a scene stay buoyant. And students like, I always thought that, you know, the cool people in Manchester would look, you know, would look down at, you know, not another fucking student, but actually John Robb explained it's that actually, no, they were really important because of course, you know, they spend money, but they also, they're hungry for new stuff.
Well, the
And
Chemical Brothers met in
they were there
Manchester.
as well. That's
Before
right.
that, the comic strip.
Yeah.
There's been a sort of, you know, there's been a kind of legacy or tradition of people from outside of the city coming and just digging it so much.
Chris Wright, who formed Chrysalis Records.
Here's another one, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And the amount of people who I've met over the years who come up, they want a selfie or whatever, and I can tell, you know, they're not from Manchester, and I'll ask, I kind of know the answer before I've even asked it, really. What you know, why did you come to the city? And often it's, they come to uni, and they chose that uni, so of a certain vintage, I guess, they chose that uni because of the Us and New Order and the Roses and the Mondays and all of that stuff. And that's, you know, that's, I don't know whether that's changing now, but I know Leeds has become like a bit of a hot spot for people to want to go to uni, but that's it's a different thing. But
there was that summer of for me, it felt like that summer of 1990 with the World Cup was almost like the perfect kind of coming, because that summer it was a hot summer, wasn't it? And I remember, I mean, I also remember I sort of left after that summer, but that's also when it started to get a little bit gnarly. I remember being in, do you remember that club Conspiracy?
Oh, yes.
I remember being in Conspiracy and being scared out of my wits because the Cheetham Hill posse had sort of stormed in and it was all starting. But it was really, you know, New Order, for instance, New Order did the World Cup song, right? Electronic, Getting Away With It just come out, the end of 89?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think when you were describing that, you know, it reminded me that summer 1990 when you know, one of my favourite things I've ever done is Get the Message, the electronic track, but that literally I've had two experiences that as I can remember. One is This Charming Man, and the other is Get the Message, where I had the window cracked open a little bit, and the warm breeze was coming through the window, which is not something one is used to in Manchester. and I was writing, I was playing the guitar anyway, and I mean, I don't know whether you can hear this, but that's how I got that riff. You know, is to me sounds like the warm wind coming through with
totally.
Yeah, kind of.
That's okay. So you know, that is one of the greatest riffs of all time. And I remember because that came out the following summer, right, 1991, and that was the sound of that summer, and it was just a cool. It could have been like in 1967. It could have been the Summer of Love. It captured everything about that time.
Well,
totally.
I had the riff happen and the sound and the 12-string, and I was kind of like, I didn't even think about it, but I was remembering that I really liked the Family Stand, Ghetto Heaven.
Yeah. Oh, I love that track.
Well, that space, that was what made me want. I put the song down in 25 minutes. You know, own, like the bass line and everything. I was like trying to marry that to a Ghetto Heaven kind of vibe, and you know, and we ended up. Not only do I think the song was a very good listen, and particularly what Bernard did on it. I mean, it was like, oh my
amazing.
God. He was so good. So I guess really, I should open the window more and try and
especially now. Do it tonight, Johnny. It's a warm night.
Pray for riffs to come through the window.
Was that Denise Johnson who sang on that?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Do you know Denise on that? We wanted her to sing more, and she said, "No, leave it. I should just come in with this impact and do this thing, and then leave it."
Wow.
That's a real musician. You know?
There's something about her voice. I mean, you knew her, but like yeah, there's just absolute beauty and magic in her voice, right? I mean,
Denise and
it's
I did so
soul.
much stuff together. I was felt very fortunate that we really clicked. And you know, on the Electronic second album, which is very kind of housey in a way,
Yeah,
really, she's the on that, particularly on the dance tracks. She really gold plated all of the stuff that she sang. And I mean, you know, I was running out of tracks back then. We recorded on tape,
yeah,
and you know, we would have needed 3 studios to put the, because we just kept piling on. Me and Denise were encouraging each other. Yeah, that was yeah, I'm really, I feel very lucky that that I've got a voice on a couple of songs that I wrote. You know, it's a beautiful
beautiful.
thing. I'm glad you reminded me of that, Ed. Yeah.
That's I love, you know, and I love the fact that you're playing. You see you when I saw you play Get the Message live.
I wanted to do that for the
Yeah,
longest time, and I always thought it was going to be a real task, and I thought we would need more technology and maybe a laptop on all this. And you know what? I suggest, this is true story. For years, I thought, oh, we're going to need 5 more band members to play this song for some reason. And I mentioned it to my band, and I went and was doing something in rehearsal, and I came back and they were playing it, and it sounded like it does.
wow, wow,
That's how good my band are, the 3 of them.
they're great.
I mean,
They're really great.
likewise, Ed, likewise, man. That's why, you know, your band, so
Yeah,
good, so
I
good.
miss those guys. We only did 6 shows.
Yeah,
We'll be
amazing.
back.
How long did you
Yeah,
rehearse for?
we did 2 weeks out in Wales. Where I did a lot of the recording. We basically, because I didn't want to, I kind of wanted to imbue them with the spirit of the record. I'm really into all that. You know, I'm really into,
Yeah,
bit like, you know, very similar to when we went out to Carry Carry or rehearsed at Pihar with Neil in the first Seven Worlds Collide, getting them people into a place that's not in the city, where we kind of eat, sleep, and breathe it, and um, and it was good. It was really fun. But you know, it's funny. It's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I miss those guys. You know, and it's but it feels like a very long time ago.
yeah. Well, there's 7 Worlds.
Well, Seven Worlds
Oh, the
particularly,
band.
but the
Because Seven
band. But
Worlds was a
yeah,
long time ago. Oh,
Seven
the
Worlds was
band. Yeah. Well, you know, hey, look,
yeah,
the thing with
exactly.
lockdown, someone I know the other day, just in conversation, was, well, said they were talking about just the lockdown. It was just a passing non-conversation, and they just said time isn't doing anything.
Yeah,
And I was just like, wow, I think you just completely summed up lockdown, because my experience is that half the time I think that it seems like the days are flying by. And then other times I think it seems like years ago that the whole lockdown started. And then I think, well, I've got a whole lot done. I've recorded a double album, and then other times I feel like it was only yesterday and I'm not getting anything done. And this phrase, time's doing nothing,
yeah,
is like, wow, that's so pretty zen, you know. And it seemed to sort of I think that's what she said anyway. And I think it sort of it seems to kind of sum up this sort of word feeling of kind of suspension. You know, this sort of feeling of, yeah,
yeah,
sort of suspended kind of time. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, you're an asshole if you're not, if your thoughts firstly don't go to, you know, people who've really had some suffering, and but also so many people are like, you know, sitting on the end of their beds in little apartments in London, you know, and or New York or wherever around the world, and they're working on the end of their beds, you know. I
yeah,
mean, that's it's going to be so good when this is all over. People can
yeah,
just get out and remember, just get back to remembering just being ordinary, you know,
yeah, yeah. I know.
unextraordinary, you know, like
Yeah,
just mundane stuff, you know.
yeah.
So
And
that's
I
going to be
think
great.
I think people as well. I think if you know if you're looking for silver linings, there's. I just hope that people are going to. Well, I was just about to say I hope that people are going to be kinder to one another, and I think some will,
Yeah.
and you know more appreciative. There's obviously some who aren't, but yeah.
I think
Thank you.
human nature is such that and I think this is almost like kind of something about this is kind of endearing. I think human nature is such that about a year later, people are just going to kind of not have forgotten it, But the people who are the fortunate ones of us who haven't lost our businesses or haven't suffered losses and all of that, there's going to be a lot of people who just kind of remember it as a weird thing that we went through, because not because they're unfeeling, because we're just, humans are such creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And once we get back to doing, and I think, do you know what? Good for people. You know, we don't want to be carrying trauma around. Good for them. You know, good for people to shake it off and get back to all our moaning.
On that note, Johnny,
Been great to see you, Ed.
It's been great. I mean, I know that it's kind of.
Hang on a second. Are people listening to this?
Well, yeah.
Sorry.
Usually our conversations, the one we had 2 weeks ago went on for 3 hours.
Wow, fantastic!
I love them. I always love checking in with you because it's
likewise. Yeah,
I always feel uplifted, and I always,
great to have mates, man. It's great to have mates.
Exactly. Yeah.
Love you, Ed.
Love you, Johnny.
Take
Have
care,
a beautiful evening. Speak to you soon.
Thanks very much. See you.
See ya.